HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and so on. So before starting off, what is HTML? Let's see what is actually a website is. So website is nothing but let's start, right? So website is nothing but just files which are loaded onto your computer when you search for a website in Google or something like that. All the website files are stored on something called as a server, right? It is stored on something called as a server, and everything inside a server are just files. Everything present inside a server are just files which contains instructions which is given to the computer, which is given to your browser to do certain information, which is displayed onto your browser as attractive websites. So what we are going to learn is actually we are going to learn how to give instructions to the browser using some files. So the most common files used to give instructions are known as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now I know that you might have got confused a bit, so let me just clear it down for you. First of all, let's learn about some of the differences between websites, static sites, dynamic sites, and then let's learn about these things. So first of all, whenever you open a website inside a browser, so as I said, you are actually just loading some files which contains information about what to do onto your browser, right? So all these files are stored in a server, as I told you earlier. Now some files do contain information which is given to your browser to perform certain actions, whereas others are not like that. They actually contain information what should be done inside the server, and then the result is transferred to your browser. So say for example, in languages like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the information is sent to your browser, which is displayed onto your screen. So say for example, the program file sends 2 and 2 to the browser. This is just an example. And then it also sends the instruction to add those 2 numbers. So by this way, the browser performs an action which adds these 2 numbers and then gives a result of 4. This is how some files work, and these kind of files are known as something called as static files. And the websites which are generated using static files are known as static sites. Whereas some programming languages perform the action inside of the server and then give the result to the browser, as I told you earlier. Say for example, the browser has the 2 numbers 2 and 2, and it has the information to add those 2 numbers and gets an answer 4, and this 4, the result, is actually transferred to your browser like this. So this 4 is displayed by just doing the action in the server itself and then sending the results. These kind of sites are known as dynamic sites. Dynamic sites, and the files are known as dynamic files. In static files or static sites, programming languages like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are used. Whereas in dynamic files, programming languages like PHP, Node.js, Python, Java, etc. are used. So what we are going to see is we are going to see how to build websites using HTML and CSS and JavaScript to create a complete functional static site, and then we would learn further to know how to build websites using dynamic sites in our later tutorials, right? So let's start. First of all, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup, HTML. So actually So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and HTML was basically designed to create awesome websites very easily. And HTML files are actually pretty much used to make static sites. As I told you earlier, HTML is like the framework for our website. It's like the backbone for our website. And CSS is like something that gives beauty, that gives some kind of attractiveness to our website, right? And JavaScript is like something which gives actual life to our website, right? And so we are going to see how to create websites using HTML. So let's see a quick example. Let me just create a new file, and let's name it something like example. An HTML file should end with an extension HTML, and HTML always should start with an HTML tag, and then should also end with an \HTML, right? So, and every HTML file should contain a head tag, and inside the head tag we have that something called as the title tag, in which we give the title of our website. So let's say hello world would be the title of our website. So now it is saved in my works, and yeah, it's present here, right? So let me just navigate to there, go to this PC and the directory, my works, and here's this. Now we can see that it opens up in the browser itself. You can see nothing because we have did nothing, and here up here you can see hello world displaying, which is actually the title which we are given. If you remove this line, by default it will display the name in the file, but when we had this, it will have the title of the website here. This is really useful if you are uploading your website on Google, on the web, and Google will show the title of your website. Next we have something called as the body tag. Inside of the body tag is only where we give many of the things. So let's add a paragraph tag. P stands for paragraph, and let's just say hello everyone, welcome to programmer processing unit. And yeah, so now when we refresh this page, you can see that hello everyone, welcome to programmer processing unit. But you can see that it is not in the new line. That's because it just gives instruction to display this paragraph. It doesn't give instruction to display new lines based on what we enter. So for that we have a tag called a break tag, and yeah. So now when we refresh this, you can see that it is displayed on the new line. And also we can create pretty much many things using HTML. So let's create a list tag. Okay, so we will see about list later on. So let's create so this gives a pretty much brief introduction on HTML. So we can add and our next topic would be something called as CSS, or Cascaded Style Sheet. CSS is used to give attractiveness to this website. So for that, let me just go here and create a CSS file. Let's call it hello.css. And to link CSS files and HTML files, we need to use this tag called as the links tag. Link URL is equal to style sheet, and the hyper reference tab, you should give the URL of the CSS page. But here, since everything is present in the same folder, we can just give the name of it. So let's call it hello.css as given here. Now inside of the CSS, we can add attractiveness to it. So let's add some attractiveness to the paragraph. The P stands for paragraph here. So to access tags, we use this keyword. Let's say color to something like red. And when we refresh the page, you can see that it turns out to be red. And also we can do many things using this. Let's have background color, and let it be something like black, and I want the color to be green if it is black. You can add many other format of colors also, which I will tell you later. Increase the font size. Say it could be something like 50 pixels. Yeah. And if I refresh, you can see that it has become bigger. You can also add animations. Animations are pretty much great topic, so we will talk about it later. Next, what you're going to see is we're going to see what is JavaScript. JavaScript is a bit difficult to understand as a beginner. So for now, let me just give you an introduction. So to add JavaScript, we can just use the script tag. Script type is equal to text into JavaScript. We'll add script tag, and if you are using like this, it should come under the body tag, right? So let me just give it here, and let's say alert hello world, and don't forget to add a semicolon. Now when you refresh the page, you can see that it alerts us hello world, and when you click OK, it shows the website. So this is the function of the hello tag, and also we can do many things with this. We can access this program. So let's try creating an on click function, and let's call hello function. Now if you have already learned programming, this would be something similar for you. If you have not learned about programming, don't worry, I will teach you everything in my future videos. So let's create a function hello, and then let's give it let's say we want to change the color of it. So document dot query selector, let's call p dot style dot color is equal to say some hexadecimal code 234. Now this is just for testing purpose, right? So it selects the p tag, which is this, and then it changes the color of it to this. So now let's refresh this, and you can see that it changes. The color is actually yellow. So refresh this. When you see, when I click this, it changes the color of it. You can also add many functions like this. Let's say we have a function called on hover. So on. So I think you got it right. On click. So you can also add something called as on double click. So you can see on the click, and so now let's refresh this, and if I click twice, you can see that it happens, right? So this is what JavaScript is. JavaScript actually adds life to a website, but you don't need to actually include JavaScript here. You can actually include it in a separate file. So for that, let me just create a new file. Let's call it hello.js. JavaScript file should end with the JS extension. JavaScript file. So